Okay, so what we're looking at today is Section D, which is legislation. In particular, we're going to look at what the Trade Description and Sale of Goods Act are, understand product labelling and its importance, what BSI and CE standards are, intellectual property rights, and how that relates to design regulations. So when we look at the Trade Description Act and Sales of Goods Act, it's really important to try and understand what are they. Now, they are acts of Parliament that are designed to protect consumer rights. The Trade Description Act is concerned with product liability, product incorrectly described or defective products, and it's an offence for a company to mislead the consumer. What you're looking at with the Trade Description Act here is that you're not allowed to give false or misleading information. So, for example, the Carlsberg adverts say at the end, probably the best lager in the world. Well, they can't say it is the best because they've got no evidence to prove that. That would then therefore be a false or misleading statement. But it also means that you're not allowed to say that your product does a particular task and therefore it doesn't. This would lead to penalties if need be. The Sales of Goods Act is concerned primarily with the sales of goods and the services that allows. It allows the consumer to get the money back if the product doesn't conform to its contract. So what you're saying there is that the product is of acceptable quality, it's fit for purpose, and if not, as a consumer, you can request your money back as long as it's within a reasonable time period. Or if you're not going to get your money back, you can get a product that can get it repaired, or you can even get it replaced. Product labelling is covered under the Trade Description Act. Labels must include accurate information to ensure that products can be used safely and correctly. For example, motorcycle helmets must have a label attached to them informing you not to paint them or apply any kind of solvents, as that might actually weaken the material, allow it to give less protection. Aerosol cans, for example, must have warning signs on there to say don't put into a fire when you finish with them because they might blow up, for example, or don't put onto a naked flame. You might also be looking at sort of food in terms of looking at use by dates or best before dates. You know, food standard agencies these days make sure that you've got to have low in fats, low saturated fats, the sugar content, particularly the salt content these days. It might even be that you have all the E numbers in there, or that this product contains nuts, because that could obviously be hazardous to somebody's health. Other sort of labellings that you do get though these days are on tobacco products, where these are for health warnings. This started in 2002, but more recently, legislation in 2007 meant that the pictures sort of overcome most of the advertising. Now, if you notice about smoking, is that these sort of advertisements now are not on TV because they're not allowed to be. It's part of big government laws that allow you to do that. But in terms of other labellings, you might have, flammable signs, toxic signs, say, for example, on cleaning products. It could be on clothing, tell you to wash it at a certain temperature or not to iron it, just to maybe get it dry fitted. When you're looking at electrical components, it might be power supplies, for example, not putting 24 volt supply into a 12 volt product because it might cause it to smoke or blow up. So labelling in terms of your product can not only allow the consumer to understand that these particular products are safe, but it also gives you some indication of how that product is used, what that product is made of, where it's come from, which can give you peace of mind as a consumer as well. Now, when you look at these two marks, you've got the CE mark on the left and you've got the BSI mark on the right. The CE mark is not an abbreviation, but it's a declaration by the manufacturer that the product meets all the appropriate provisions of the relevant legislation. In other words, it refers to safety and isn't a declaration of a quality product. All it means is that within the EU, all the countries that are in the EU have actually said okay, if we give a product a CE mark, it means that it is a safe product. It's not going to harm the user, and therefore we will allow you to distribute that within Europe. Without that mark, you can't put it on shelves. The BSI mark is particularly for Britain. It's called it's a British safety marks, and the mark that we're looking at is actually called a kite mark. Now, the BSI works with governments, industries, and consumers to put together these British safety standards. What they're designed to do is, one, attract and assure consumers that the products are safe and fit for purpose. It demonstrates market leadership, and by what we mean by that is that actually these are products that are safe to be put onto our shelves. We, as a country, say that our products are better than anything else that you can get from different countries, and therefore it's kind of promoting British products. It also is a mark of indication that there's continued development of products to meet high standards. So that could be that if you've got a kite mark, it means that every year you've got to go through stringent testing. Because these tests now and technology is getting better, these tests are getting more and more better, which means that your product essentially is getting better quality. Many companies in Britain have actually made it mandatory for their suppliers to be awarded the kite mark before any orders are submitted. You might find on the back of products then sort of numbers like BSEN 7 dash, for example, and this might equate to a material or a particular thickness of an injection molding product, for example, in toys, or it might just simply be a test that has been performed on that product.
The 1980s and 90s saw BSI developing tests to keep pace with the changing materials and technology used in industry and the home. Safety has always been central to the role of the kite mark, and as technology has evolved, so new standards and tests have been developed. Changes in building materials resulted in a need for new tests and new applications for the kite mark.
Okay, so what that video basically just showed was the BSI Institute testing a door and a pram. Now, what it does is it literally tests these products to breaking point. We talked previously about, when you're designing a chair, you might design it for a 30-40 stone person, but really, in reality, it might only hold an 18-20 stone person at any one time. They actually design it to the extreme to make sure that that product doesn't fail. Well, the BSI Institute will do exactly the same with all products, and it needs to be able to do this in order to be awarded that kite mark. What we're going to look at now is intellectual property rights. The video that you're about to see goes through the four main areas of intellectual property right. It actually goes through three main areas, and it does trade secrets, and I'll give you a fourth one later.
intellectual property, or IP, a very misunderstood topic. It's not a very exciting topic, but there are 4 different types of IP, and it's very important to understand the 4 types of IP. First, the patent. People always talk about patents. You hear people saying, oh, I have this great idea, I'm going to patent that. Oh, this is a great name for this product, I'm going to patent that. It's very misunderstood. Patents are basically the right to exclude other people from making whatever you've created. There are some crazy patents. For example, there's actually a patent for a bird diaper. That would mean that if anyone other than that person decided they were going to make a bird diaper, that person could have stopped them from making the bird diaper. But the way it works is it's an exchange with the government. You're excluding other people from making your bird diaper, but you have to disclose how that bird diaper is made in detail. It's online, it's at the USPTO. You have to disclose that, and then after your patent runs out, which could be anywhere from 14 to 17 years to 20 years, depending on when you got your patent, at that time, the rest of the world can just go right ahead and make bird diapers. So there are 2 types of patents. There's the utility patent, and then there's design patents. But the whole thing to understand about it is it doesn't give you the right to make whatever you've created. Because, for example, with our bird diaper, there might be something that's used in that someone else has a patent on. So you might have to go and ask them for the use of their, let's say, Velcro adhesives for the bird diaper. Now, that can get really complicated. And this patents is an area, there's just been a huge change in the law in the US, and it's an area that you must consult with a professional, and often that is a patent attorney. Understanding that you're not going to patent a name gives you a little bit more information. What are you going to do with a name, though? A name is something you can trademark, you can copyright. A trademark is something, one of the most famous trademarks would be Coca-Cola, Apple. These are brands. So what you're doing is that trademark for Coca-Cola on the bottle tells you that if I pour the contents of that bottle into my glass, I, as a consumer, am protected. I'm not going to get Pepsi. I am going to get Coca-Cola. That's the deal that is made. So the exchange is Coca-Cola pays for that trademark, they have the right to use it, and as long as they renew it, they get to keep using it. Now, Coca-Cola is a really great example of a trade secret. So a trade secret is often used instead of a patent. So if you think about the recipe for Coca-Cola, that has been around for over 100 years. If they would have patented the recipe and the process for making Coca-Cola way back when, it would have long since been an expired patent, and then everyone in the world would know how to make Coca-Cola. So what they do instead is they keep it as a trade secret. You don't necessarily have to go to an attorney to protect a trade secret because there isn't any way of filing like there is for a patent, a trademark, or a copyright. So with trade secrets, you do have to consult with a professional to make sure that however you're protecting it is proper and will meet whatever state law it applies to you. Now, with Coke, they do something really cool with it. They actually have divided up the secrets, so there's very few people who know the entire process. There's restaurants where there's secret recipes, and you'll actually have different kitchens where part of the process is done in one kitchen, part of the process is done in a different kitchen. There's many people who say, well, hey, I don't have any trade secrets, but things like customer lists, supplier relationships, these are trade secrets. Know-how about how you put together your software, trade secret. So with trade secrets, they're basically free to protect, but the very important thing about them is once the cat's out of the bag, that's it. No more trade secrets. So it's a pro and con between trying to patent something and keeping it as a trade secret. A final piece of IP is copyrights. Copyright does not mean the right to copy. So what it means is that once I write something down, once this video is recorded, someone has copyright in this video. And then that doesn't mean that nobody can copy it. What it means is that you have to figure out what are the permissions of use. For example, there's a great site, Creative Commons, where people put things on there, photographs and videos, and people can come and use them once you read the permissions. So the copyright is with the author. It lasts for the life of the author plus a number of years that keeps increasing. So as an author, you don't really have much to worry about during your lifetime, but then it becomes really interesting after someone dies. And a really good example of that is with Walt Disney, because the things that Walt Disney has created are all copywritten, but Walt Disney has passed away many years ago. So a lot of people refer to copyright as kind of the Disney law, because the years after the author's death keeps getting bigger and bigger. So those are the 4 types of IP. You have your patents, your trademarks, and your copyrights, and your trade secrets. And for those of you who are still watching, thank you. And you might want to ask yourself, why? Why do I care about this? Because actually almost half the value of most companies in the US and the EU is intangible assets. And those intangible assets are intellectual property. It's the patents, the trademarks, the copyrights, and the trade secrets. So make sure that you understand what those things are so you can make sure that you protect them.
Okay, so if we just look at intellectual property right first and foremost, it refers to all kinds of intangible, not physical types of property that you can own. For example, the creative outcomes from the mind, such as design ideas or written material, could be musical composition. It allows you to own things that you create in a similar way to owning physical property, and you can control how you use your IP, whether you give somebody else permissions. Now, the first one we're going to look at, just to refresh again, is design rights and registered designs. Design rights is concerned with the rights of the creator of a design, but it only protects you in the UK, and it only lasts up to 15 years. So anything, for example, that we design ourselves, say in school, we could, we've got the right to those as designers. However, you only get that for 15 years and then somebody else could copy it. If you've got registered designs, it's concerned with giving you the ownership for the appearance of a product, protecting both the shape, the pattern or the decoration. And these last up to 5 to 25 years. This could be a particular shape for example, for a games console control. You can see the difference between the PS3s now and the Xboxes. They might think that they're fairly similar, but they're not. If you look at the exact shape of how it fits the human hand, where the buttons are, what kind of buttons that you can actually use. So those would be registered designs. A patent gives a designer protection against copying of the technical and function aspects of the invention without permission. It covers things like how it works, what it is made. There's a good video that I recommend you go and watch on the DT YouTube channel that James Dyson gives in regards to patents, and about how expensive patents can be, but how important they are in protecting your designs. For example, James Dyson's very, very first design was actually a wheelbarrow that had a ball instead of a wheel. Now, he took a patent on that ball and how it works and actually how it turns, and years later, he's clearly applied that to one of his vacuum cleaners. Now, nobody else will have a ball on the end of the vacuum cleaner exactly like him, because he's patented the technology that's used to design that product, but also the material, the shape, and the way that it's actually connected to the vacuum cleaner. Same with the cyclone technology. Although you might know that cyclone technology is used in lots and lots of different makes of vacuums, it's the way that his cyclone technology spins and actually takes and actually creates a suction power that actually is patented, and therefore nobody else can take that. Patents only last up to 20 years though, and after that 20 years, people are free to copy it. And therefore, as designers and manufacturers, you've got to try and keep redesigning your product to keep your patents, to protect your product and protect that new technology. Trademarks are used all the time. You see lots and lots of trademarks every day, some that you probably take for granted, But a trademark is used by a company to identify and distinguish its products from others. This could be name, a colour scheme, a symbol, a song. But if we take the example from the video, Apple and Coca-Cola are probably two of your most famous trademarks. Apple is the actual Apple sign. The Coca-Cola is not just the actual Coca-Cola logo, but also the colours that are associated with the Coca-Cola. But you've also got things like your McDonald's, which is your golden arches, your M's, which is your trademarks as well. The Haribo song is also a trademark, and it's part of their branding. If we also look at copyright, then copyright is a set of exclusive rights or protection, i.e. the creators of original ideas. You can have copyright but still give people permission to use that copyright. And I think that's the difference between some of these IPs, is that yes, it protects it, but you can allow people to use your particular logos or slogans, artwork, photographs, for example, paintings, sculptures. Things like music is copyrighted. Films are now not now copyrighted, always have been copyrighted. Things like Microsoft PowerPoint, computer programs have all got copyright in them. Doesn't mean that you can't use them on different systems, because they allow different computers. For example, like Apple, you can get PowerPoint for Apple now. Well, Microsoft has given Apple those rights to actually allow those programs to be put onto these computers. It's a way of helping each other out, but it's also a way, again, of making money. Now, when we're looking at legislation, there's a couple of questions that you need to ask yourself. How important is intellectual property right and the protection to designers? Just think about that question and think about what we've talked about today in terms of registered designs, trademarks, copyrights, and patents. And how does that protect designers, protect their ideas, but also in a way then make a product successful? The other question to ask yourself from today is to try and to understand the importance of European safety standards and the BSI Institute in the success of a product. If you didn't have those, how successful would that product be? How many products do you think you might sell? And what's the difference? How important is that kite mark in terms of getting a product to not only sell in Great Britain, but also therefore maybe trying to introduce that to a foreign market? If you say, or trying to introduce it there, if you're saying, well, actually in Britain I managed to get the kite mark. So try and have a look at these two questions and see if you can answer them based on the information that we've gained today.